Now let's take our Z-spheres, turn those into an adaptive skin, and begin doing some sculpting. So once we've got our base mesh, or our base created, a base of Z-spheres, we need to create our base mesh. So again, hit A on your keyboard. You can see I've gone ahead and continued to modify. I've added the rest of the fingers and modified this a little bit to match up. This is, by the way, once we start getting into the projects, you can open up those Z tools if you want to kind of see a progressive project file. So this is 19 begin if you're looking at those project files. So let's go down to our adaptive skin. And if we're happy with how that looks, let's go ahead and just say make adaptive skin. So what that does is doesn't replace our tool, it adds another tool in here. So you can see it starts with skin, skin 19 begin. So I'm just going to click on that, and now we've got our skin to work with. So at this point we can begin to do our sculpting. Again, I got perspective turned off. Let's choose, in this case, I'm going to choose a brush that's going to allow us to kind of physically move things around a little bit more versus sculpting a stroke across the model. So let's come up here. We're going to choose the move brush. So hit M on your keyboard. That'll narrow it down, and then V will actually help you select move. Let's make sure that symmetry is turned on in the X. And I want to turn the draw size, pick the draw size up a little bit. And I think, yep. So this will allow you to come in. I can't see the other, there the other line is. So this will allow you to come in and shape your model. So I'm just clicking and dragging this out to kind of match this up, better match it up with our artwork. So I'm just going to come in and kind of pull this out a little bit. So it's kind of, think of move as kind of like a soft selection. And so you can kind of move things around, but you have sort of a fall off, so you're not creating any sort of weird things with the with it. Okay, you can also come in here and we can try transparency, but I only have one subtool, so I think that's not going to work. We can also come in here and turn on, so we've got front turned on. We can also increase the fill mode so we can kind of see it a little bit better. And then we can also come in here and project it onto the mesh. So you can see that sort of projected onto the top of the mesh. That makes sense. So I think I'm going to just turn that down and just work with that enhanced, the enhanced fill mode, or the changed fill mode. So that'll let me see kind of where I need to pull it in versus kind of smoothing that out and then pulling that down for the interior of the arm. And then I'll kind of come in and you can pull these legs down a little bit and over. You can see these are off a little bit further, so we can get a larger draw size and come in and tweak that. Now in some of these areas, you're going to see that you've got this sort of cylinder shape that is a little bit too thick. So what we can do is use the inflate brush. So inflate. And what that'll do is if I just sculpt on it, it's going to basically inflate it much like we did with our deformation. But if we need to kind of narrow some areas down, we can use Alt to go over it, and that'll kind of thin down those areas. Okay, so we can come in here and kind of thin out areas along the leg there where we see it being a little bit thinner. And then we can go back to move, kind of move those back into position. On the feet, let's start to add a bit of shape to the foot. Kind of smooth it out, bring it up. We can take the feet themselves and kind of pull them out a little bit. I want to flatten them down. So just again, using move, kind of match it up. and just visually seeing, okay, it's a little bit too high there. Okay, and you can see where we're starting to get some edges that are kind of moving off to the side, so I'll just kind of smooth those out a little bit. But using move here at a low, kind of the lowest resolution is a good way to kind of get your base figured out. So something like that. And we don't have to get it exact, but the main thing is to just use your move to start to create that shape. And we can go here from the side too on the head and start to get that shape going. Now we don't have the right topology necessarily to do that head, but we can start to kind of build things out and match them up as best we can. Closer we can get it, the better. And this, we're not thinking about any sort of high-res detail at this point. We're just thinking about kind of the volumes, the forms that we have here. So you can see we can kind of pull this down and kind of flatten off his back and his bottom a little bit. We just tap it with the shift to smooth that out just a little bit. Here you can see the chest. We can really come in and smooth that out. His chest was really sticking out because of those Z-spheres they're round, right? They're not flat, and so the skins that we create sometimes have a little bit too much volume, and we can kind of reduce that. Let's kind of bring this in. So something more like that. And then maybe on his neck, kind of bring that down a little bit. So we end up with something like that. You can check from the different angles to see how that's how it's kind of matching up. Let's bring this back a little bit. So we get something like that. So without adding any subdivision levels, we kind of create the basic low-res shape that we want to work from. And that's from the Z-spheres, just using an adaptive skin and then going in once it's a polymesh and using move to create some shape on it. Okay, so we'll get back to this character in a minute, but next let's take a look at a really cool feature of ZBrush called Dynamesh. And we'll use it to create something that we'll be taking advantage of later on. But the key is that you're able to do this sort of dynamic tessellation to change resolution where you need it. So we'll take a look at why that's important, and then we'll kind of create a simple little piece using Dynamesh. So let's do that next.